Hello and Happy New Year to everybody. I am excited to bring you the first Pittcon coffee break of the new year. Before getting into the actual substance, I'll just give you a little bit of a highlight of Pittcon. I'm the program chair for 2021. The program team has been very hard at work. Includes a lot of different experts that I really relied upon a lot this year to make it for a great virtual program that should cover a lot of different areas. Energy is the one we're highlighting today, and there's especially some great stuff that you'll see in the program this year. As many of you know, Pittcon is a nonprofit organization and funds science research education. 90 cents on every dollar goes back to funding science research, science education, and continuing education. Pittcon does not have any for-profit motives and has a very small staff to help the committee, which are all volunteers, to accomplish the goals of Pittcon. I'm a volunteer, as is our speaker today. Pittcon has organized itself into specific tracks so that you can find the content that's the most valuable to you. There's a variety of different things that are going to be covered in each of these. As you can see, there's environmental, nanotechnology and material science, cannabis and hemp, life sciences, energy, industry and manufacturing, food science and agriculture, forensics and toxicology, bioanalytics, and pharmaceutical. Today, we're going to talk about energy. Specifically in the program this year, we have some really exciting elements on the energy side. Our Coulter lecturer this year is on the energy side. Our Coulter lecturer is going to be discussing about the Industrial Laboratory for Energies and Chemicals, past, present, and future. That's Joe Powell, the recently retired principal scientist for Shell. And then you also have advanced analytical techniques in the study of energy storage materials that'll be highlighted in the program. Another great session is petroleum and fuel analysis, and there will be global issues in environmental research and analysis. Short courses are going to be extensive as well. You can read for yourselves the ones that are there. There are many more that are not identified, but these ones here sort of seemed of the greatest interest to those who are in the energy world. And then, of course, the networking sessions. The format will obviously be different with Pittcon being virtual this year, but there should be a great opportunity to get to meet people who are analyzing different environmental or energy related issues that could be useful in your daily work. We hope to see you at Pittcon. It's from March 8th to 12th, 2021. As you can see, the technical program kicks off on the 8th and goes Monday through Friday so that you can manage it through the work week. Short courses are Monday through Thursday, and then the exposition itself, which is a virtual exposition, will be from Monday through Wednesday. We encourage you to go to the website, pittcon.org/register, and allow you to be part of this new way of handling it for this year. With that, I'd like to turn it over to our speaker today, who's going to talk as part of the coffee break on energy, John Baltrus.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Hello. Again, my name is John Baltrus, and I'd like to welcome you to this month's Pittcon coffee break on energy. First, a little bit about myself. I'm a research chemist at the U.S. Department of Energy's National Energy Technology Laboratory, and I've been there for the last 34 plus years. I joined the Pittcon organizing committee in 1990 and served as president of Pittcon 2004. And since that time, I've been spending most of my time on the conference's technical program organizing committee, where I usually organize the sessions on fuels, energy, and petrochemicals. Throughout the years, there's been a strong connection between Pittcon in our laboratory at NETL and its predecessors. In fact, 8 former presidents have come from our lab. And I believe that's due to the strong emphasis on analytical chemistry and spectroscopy in our research. And you can see just here the wide breadth of expertise among these former presidents. And it's not only the former presidents who've helped organize Pittcon from our lab, but also other scientists, researchers, both federal and contractor, who have been part of the Pittcon organizing committee or the conference week staff. Today, I've been asked to talk about energy research from an analytical and spectroscopic perspective. That's a pretty tall order, given the breadth of that subject and that this is a coffee break with limited time. Therefore, I'd like to focus on one particular exciting project happening at NETL right now that involves both our advanced sensor development research and our rare earth element research. I'm currently the task leader for the characterization task under the in-house REE research program, where we're trying to develop 2 types of portable probes to both detect and measure the concentration of rare earth elements. First, a little bit about rare earth elements. Rare earth elements are found in a wide variety of electronics, including electrical vehicles, even this cell phone that pretty much everybody has by now. They're in magnets, electromagnets, and the demand for REEs is only predicted to increase in future years. And they're also important for national defense. So it's a good idea that we're not relying on one country for these REEs like we are now, and that country is China. And the reason that's happening is because of the environmental concerns with mining REEs that makes domestic mining kind of impractical at this point. Now, the National Energy Technology Lab is the Department of Energy's fossil energy lab. So naturally, we're trying to get REEs from coal and coal byproducts, such as fly ash and acid mine drainage. REEs are not necessarily rare. In fact, they're pretty much everywhere. It's just that they're not found in high concentrations in any one place. So you have to take this statement here that coal is naturally rich, REE rich, with a grain of salt. It doesn't particularly have a whole lot of REEs, but compared to a lot of other minerals, it does. And then when you burn it, you eliminate the organic matter so that the byproducts from combustion are enriched in REEs. And here's just an example. The coal that we mine has on the order of low tens to low hundreds of parts per millions of rare earth elements. And we can extract those rare earth elements using mild acids, organic acids. We can also get REEs from the coal rock refuse, which is the rock that's associated with the coal when it's mined and then is thrown away. There, the concentration of REEs is a little bit greater. We can look at fly ash or bottom ash, products of coal combustion, where the concentration of REEs is even higher because the organic matter has been removed. The challenge there is, during combustion, the coal is exposed to high temperature, and the aluminosilicate materials in that coal are melted and form a glass that makes extraction of the REEs very difficult, requiring either extensive grinding or use of strong acids. And then there's acid mine drainage. And actually right now, that's the material of choice. You might ask, well, why? Because it has the lowest concentration of REEs. Yes, but we've also already gotten around the environmental factor. Well, the environmental factor is there in that acid mine drainage is something you don't want flowing into your streams, but it's there. So now we want to clean it up. And in the process of cleaning it up, we can pass it over sorbents that will absorb the REEs. And then we can treat those sorbents further to get the product that we want. So it'd be good to have probes in which we can detect REEs and measure their concentration during these processing steps. We can put the probe in the acid mine drainage as it's flowing out of the mine, and we can measure the REE concentration or just detect REEs after the acid mine drainage has gone through the sorbent. And when we see a signal, then we know that the sorbent needs to be changed. Or we can put it in a process plant as shown in this schematic diagram. And there's many points where we'd like to know how well the process is working and if it needs to be adjusted. And in order to be able to do that, we need to know what the REE concentration is. And in all these cases, we're looking at measuring REEs in liquid form. So there are methods for measuring REE concentrations. The go-to technique is inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometry, ICP-MS. That's the go-to technique. Great detection limits, parts per trillion. The issue for a process situation, though, is that the instrument costs a lot and it's not portable. You have to take a sample from the process, bring it to a lab, treat it in some way, put it in an instrument. This involves time and there's no immediate feedback. There are portable methods for measuring REE concentrations in solids, such as X-ray fluorescence and laser-induced breakdown spectroscopy, or otherwise Libs. These still have good limits of detections in the low parts per million. They are portable and they're more affordable. But again, they're solids, they're not liquids. So what we're trying to develop in our lab, again, are liquid probes to measure REEs in liquid form, dissolved liquids. So we're doing that with luminescent spectroscopy, and actually we're going back to Libs and using Libs to measure REEs in liquids. And as far as the luminescence probe goes, the detection limits there are very good in the low tens of parts per billion. So it offers high sensitivity and a comparable cost. First, I'll talk a little bit about the luminescent probe. These depend upon metal organic frameworks as sensitizers for the REEs. The REEs are naturally luminescent when they're irradiated with ultraviolet light, and so is the metal organic frameworks, or MOFs. However, you put them together, and the MOFs will transfer energy to the REEs, and those will then luminesce with increased intensity, making detection at low parts per billion we're quite capable of doing that. So as it's shown here, it's parts per billion detection. There's rapid measurement, no more than 5 minutes to get a stable signal. We're able to sensitize multiple REEs. You can see here the emission spectra from different REEs. The peaks are well separated, they're narrow. We can measure one or we can measure many at the same time. The MOFs are dispersible in aqueous or organic solvents, or they can be integrated onto an optical fiber optic sensor. They offer some resistance against interference such as iron and acids, and we're working on identifying MOFs and MOF structures that will be even more resistant to iron and acids and still offer good detection limits in our current research. Here you'll see some of the detection limits we've obtained, again, from very low parts, single parts per billion to a couple of hundred parts per billion. The different REEs we've detected, you'll notice the stars, the asterisks beside some of those REEs, those are critical rare earth elements. which are in short supply compared to the need for them. So we're especially excited that we're able to detect these particular REEs, and we've done most of our research with the two with the lowest detection limits, terbium and europium. And our ability to detect the REEs and how much interference we get from other elements or from pH depends upon the structure of the MOF. We've looked at different linkers, and this slide shows a prime example of one linker in which we get great signal, able to distinguish terbium and europium, and a couple other linkers that we tried where we didn't have such great results. So it depends upon the linkers in addition to the individual MOFs. We have a manuscript that's under review right now, and hopefully will come out soon on this. We've dispersed the MOFs in solution and did our first experiments in solution, and this led to actually a prototype handheld device that was fabricated along with Kevin Chen's group at the University of Pittsburgh, in which we're irradiating a liquid sample with a UV LED light, and everything's built into, again, a handheld platform except for the computer. And we were able to detect different REEs, and either singly or, again, more than one in the same solution. We're also able to coat the MOF onto the end of a fiber optic, and this shows an optical based sensor for REEs that we have in the lab right now, and hopefully soon we'll be able to get this also into a more compact package that we'll be able to take out into the field. One of the things that we've looked at in addition to sensitivity is the reversibility. Can we regenerate the MOF probe when it's on the end of a fiber optic tip? And here we did 10 cycles of regeneration, and we were able to see the same signal. The signal was decreased, this is normalized signal, but we were able to see the same peaks still strongly after 10 regenerations. So not only do we have rapid detection, but we're able to regenerate. And this was done in a week, or in a hydrochloric acid solution, a mild hydrochloric acid solution, and we're also able to replace the tip if we need to, if the regeneration was just not feasible in the situation that we're in. All this work was done by an ORISE postdoctoral researcher, Scott Crawford, who got his PhD at the University of Pittsburgh and has spent the last 2 years in our lab. He's put out a number of publications about this research. I encourage you to go there and find out more information about it. And the fourth one is an especially nice review of different photoluminescent sensing materials for rare earth elements, and talks about some of the challenges and opportunities for that research. So I thank Scott for contributing to this part of the talk. The other probe we were looking at is a Libs-based probe. And this probe originated from the need to measure whether carbon dioxide that is sequestered underground might be leaking out into nearby aquifers. And the idea behind that was, if the CO2 were to leak into the water, it would lower the pH, and a more acidic pH would dissolve some of the rock around that aquifer, increasing the ionic concentration, or the concentration of different elements in that water. So we were looking for a probe that we could put downhole into an aquifer and use it as a way of monitoring possible leakage of CO2. Then the idea came up when the rare earth research program started of not only can we measure these different ions in solution, but we can measure REEs using Libs. So the same platform was taken and used to test whether we can measure REEs in solution, and we can. Here was just a synthetic solution of REEs, and Libs was able to detect them when we did the measurement. This work is being done by Dustin McIntyre and his group at our Morgantown laboratory. And Dustin has talked about this liquid Libs probe at prior Pittcons. So we've been able to follow that development through the recent years, and now we're moving into REEs. So first they tried detecting REEs in solution in with a laboratory instrument with a strong laser. And here again, another synthetic solution of REEs. We were able to detect REEs in that solution and publish that work a couple of years ago. And then they came up with the concept again for a downhole probe. And this is just a schematic diagram of that probe with a couple of sensor heads that would be placed into solution. And not only could be placed downhole, but it would be great to put in a manufacturing situation where you are processing REEs. There's many points in that process where you have a liquid solution and need to measure the REE content. And here is the probe as it is constructed. Again, the limit of detection was comparable to benchtop systems, and they're also relevant to real-world samples of processed coal and coal fly ash. Both of these sensors are not only part of our rare earth research program, but also our advanced sensor research program, where we're looking at developing various optical sensors for sensing things such as gas concentrations, temperature, pH, and corrosion. The applications of these being for gas sensing and temperature, power plants and solid oxide fuel cells, where the conditions are just too severe in terms of temperature and the types of gases present that you cannot use wired sensors. So an optical sensor, one on a fiber optic, is the method of choice. pH, again, for subsurface, for sequestration, looking at possible leakage of CO2 from underground reservoirs, and even for corrosion in pipelines, coating a material such as iron onto a fiber optic and doing what's called distributed sensing, running that fiber optic alongside the pipeline, and you're able to measure how the iron on that fiber optic corrodes, and that gives you some idea of how the pipeline next to it might be corroding as well. If you need more information on these particular projects, anything under advanced sensor research, this link here on our website, or just go to our website at www.netl.doe.gov and just search for advanced sensor research. You'll be able to find plenty of information. And with that, I'd like to conclude this webinar and open it up for questions.
Is there a way to isolate the REEs without burning coal, i.e. pyrolysis? Coal is too valuable to burn, aromatics and other structural features, and contributes to CO2 accumulation in the atmosphere and oceans.
Well, we're not going to say that we're going to burn coal to get REEs. There's already fly ash dumps all through the United States, and I'm sure other countries as well that have burnt coal throughout the years. So no, we're not going to burn more coal to create more ash to recover REEs. You'll see that, or you might have heard that some places like Tennessee Valley, they've had coal ash dumps that have sort of not been set up very well, and they've gotten into local rivers and things. And so we want to use that fly ash that's already there, and process that for the REEs.
Which one of these probes do you believe has the best chance for success?
I would say, actually, I believe both of them have a chance for success, depending upon in which situation they're used. The optical probe, the luminescent probe, that's already to the point where it could possibly be deployed in the acid mine drainage situation, just monitoring whether REEs are getting past the sorbent that we're using to monitor REE recovery from acid mine drainage. And that's because of its very low detection limits. Now, the Libs probe, the detection limits are actually higher, so it probably wouldn't work as well in that sort of a situation. But in a processing plant where the concentrations are already into a couple of hundred parts per million later on in the process, that probe would be the probe to go to right now.
Wouldn't it be quite costly and time consuming to have to replace the sensor tip on the luminescent probe after each measurement?
Actually, Scott has done a little back of the envelope calculation on that. And it turns out that the MOFs and the chemicals used to make them are very cheap. So that to make, and then the probe requires very little of the MOF. So that the cost that he calculated for a single probe is approximately 1 cent. And the time involved to replace it is actually less than a minute. So no, we're not really concerned with cost or time in that situation.
This looks like a great research project for a postdoc. How can I find more information about postdoc research opportunities at NETL?
So NETL has a couple of different ways at which you can come on as a postdoc. One is through our ORISE program. And to find out more information about that, again, just go to our homepage at www.netl.doe.gov. And there should be a link or a tab there called the Education tab. And once you do the pull down on that, there'll be information under about the various opportunities, including postdocs under the ORISE program. Our on-site contractor, Leidos, also has something called workforce development. And the easiest way to find opportunities under that is just to Google Leidos, which is Leidos, and then workforce development, NETL. And you'll be sure to be able to find that information.
Is there a rough timeline for when REE recovery could become economically feasible?
Well, our program in REE research has been going on now for 5 or 6 years. To become economically feasible, we've seen already concentrations. The initial goal was a 2% concentrate out of that program, but from the acid mine drainage, I've heard numbers up around 90 or greater than 90%. So I'm thinking that probably within the next 3 or 4 years, we could see some really good ways of recovering REEs economically from coal or coal byproducts.
How did you get into the field and into the energy field?
How did I get into the energy field? When I was doing research as a graduate student at the University of Pittsburgh, the National Energy Technology Lab was just across town. So part of my research actually required some of the equipment that they had and we didn't have. So I went over there, did some research, and it was fortuitous that an opening with my expertise, which is XPS, which is not that common of an expertise, there was an opening just as I was leaving grad school, and I went there, and I've been there for 34 years.
Okay, if anybody else have any questions? I don't see any, so we could probably wrap up, John.
Okay. Again, thank you for participating in this month's Pittcon coffee break, and we hope to see you again next month.